Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Setterby. Today, I'm going to go over a story which encompasses the first week's topics for a beginning fundamentals class lecture. So, this is a story designed to encompass passive learning modality. It's just another kind of fun way to summarize lectures for new nursing students. The topics covered in my students' class include the following subjects. Many fundamentals classes I've taught at many different schools, both RN and LVN schools, cover these particular topics. So this may or may not apply to you, but I'm going to read the topic subject rather than listing random chapter numbers, because no matter what your book publishers are, these are pretty common topics. So if you're interested in kind of something fun, whimsical, and silly, you may want to listen. At the end of this audiobook, with some kind of little whimsical videos that you're going to see of some beautiful, luxurious hospitals, I'm going to play for you some Sora AI generated videos of this narrated story. It's a tool that you can use yourself. And if you want to explore it further, you can also purchase an app to really dive deeper into this content. I just came back from our annual nursing conference for the university I'm currently working at. And one of the things that they pointed out is the students who really are scoring the highest are the ones who are using multiple learning modalities. So rather than just reading straight from the book, it's going to be a student who's reading from the book, taking notes, engaging in multiple study groups, mixing up the study groups and using different study partners. So not even getting stale, not using the same two study partners, using AI to tutor themselves. So the AI is similar to having a professional tutor that's kind of working with you. It's these different kinds of learning opportunities where you're kind of getting the information and data input into your head in different ways. Colors, flashcards, questions, and then of the question tools, these kind of grid templates are the best of the best, rather than just a flashcard back and forth or just quizzes back and forth. So on this channel, I'm going to discuss the best of the learning techniques. I'm constantly engaged in going to conferences and trying to find the best tools for you to help you with your studies. And then when you're really burnt out, come here, listen to a story, and get that last bit of information kind of stuck in your head. So without further ado, these are the topics we're going to be covering for my students for their fundamentals term one exam. So today we're going to go over our nursing kind of ADPI critical thinking, a lifelong journey. This is going to be the nursing process chapter for them. So critical thinking, a lifelong journey is all the nursing process stuff. Then we're also going to go over body mechanics and patient mobility. We're also going to go over the chapter of hygiene and care in the patient environment, so all the room environment stuff. We're also going to go over in this story cultural and ethnic considerations. So all of these things that feel like stereotypes, but our for my students, they take HESI. I know most schools it's either HESI, ATI, or Kaplan. Um, but it's all these things that you have to study and memorize about patient populations. And then we're also going to study basically the history. So the first story I put on here was the Florence Nightingale story, and that was basically covering the chapter one stuff in their book, but it's the evolution of nursing essentially. How did we get here? And the mother, as I call her to my students, was Florence Nightingale. And then finally, what's going to keep us with our licenses for the longevity of your career, documentation, the most important thing, and also that keeps everybody informed because nurses are the main communicators of the hospital. So it's very, very important that we have that excellent, excellent documentation so that if your patient codes and you have to go and, let somebody else cover the rest of your patients, they're not going to give that medication twice. So we're really going to emphasize good documentation. Now, I'm going to be putting this in the guise of a story. So when you listen to it, you're going to really have to perk up your ears and listen for those context clues and see if you're getting those main points of the story. For the students who are in my class, each one of these little hints in the story is actually directly linked to one of their exam questions. If they listen closely, they will get 100% on their exam. So please come along with me and see if you can enjoy this Fundamentals Exam 1 story. If you get these concepts, you'll probably do well on all of these main chapters because no matter who your book vendor is or who your professor is, these are kind of the main nitty-gritty meat and potatoes that most of us would like you to have as your takeaways for these concepts and for these chapters. These are the key concepts in your fundamentals review. So come along with me and let's have a little bit of fun here. Let's see, let me cue up your visuals and let's look at something pretty while we listen to this silly story. So these are the most luxurious hospitals in the world. Okay. Once upon a time in the land of Carelandia, there was a charming little nursing school nestled between Mobility Meadow and Hygiene Harbor. In this school, a group of eager student nurses were preparing for the legendary exam of 30-something questions for their Fundamentals 1 exam. This exam would test if they were ready to bring care and kindness to all the patients of the kingdom. Among the students was the novice nurse, Novicia, a curious and big-hearted learner, sometimes a bit overwhelmed, but always ready for adventure. And leading them was a legendary professor named Professor Setterby, the red-haired nurse detective known for her gentle wisdom and her magnifying glass always in hand. Early one morning, Professor Setterby gathered the students at the edge of Mobility Meadow. Listen closely, little nurses, she said in a playful but wise voice. In Carelandia, there's a troublesome curse called immobility. If a patient stays still for too long, their muscles weaken, their lungs filled with fluid, and their skin might even break down. We must keep them moving a little each day to keep that curse away. Novicia added, making it a mental note. A little daily movement helps keep mobility at bay. Mobility really is a monster, said Chuckling Chuck in a nervous laugh. Next, Professor Setterby led them to the foot of Maslow Mountain, where a giant pyramid glowed. Here is Maslow's pyramid of needs, she explained. At the very base are our most basic needs: air, water, food, and sleep. You also must know when answering test questions, they make up your ABCs too: airway, breathing, and circulation. Your priority answering on all exam questions will start with ABCs or these base levels on the base of the pyramid. They make up everything you will ever need in nursing school and in your clinical journey. We must always meet these needs first before we even begin to do anything else. Novicia whispered to herself, clinical judgment is like climbing a pyramid in the right order. Professor Setterby heard her whisper and smiled to herself. She's on the right track. They journeyed through Carelandia, stopping at the Hall of Education to see how every nursing program must be approved by the state, and at Body Mechanics Bridge to learn how to lift with their legs and keep the load close to the body, legs apart at the shoulders and load close to the body. Then they visited Linen Lane, where they kind of did the opposite. They shook the linens out, and they soiled sheets stayed away from the body. Then they went to Transfer Town, where they practiced safe patient transfers using a tool called a gait belt. In Tube Forest, they learned to keep the nares clean for patients with tubes. And at Perineal Pond, they practiced cleaning from the center out in gentle circles. By the time they reached the eye stream at the range of Motion River, Novicia felt like each little task was becoming part of her nursing story. Each little task was making a little wrinkle in her brain, and she felt like this was something she could actually remember for herself. Hey, this actually isn't so hard after all, she thought. I can remember this. This is something I can do. I can do this all by myself. I can make a memory of this. At the end of the journey, Professor Setterby gathered all the nursing students around. They stood outside of the hospital in Carelandia. She told all the students, remember, every step you take, every patient you help is part of your journey to clinical judgment. Each little piece of knowledge, each source you learn, is a stepping stone in your nursing adventure. And so, with full hearts, full of knowledge, and a sprinkle of fairy tale magic, Novicia and her fellow students were ready to face their very first nursing school exam, and they knew that they would be very thoughtful in Carelandia, taking multiple checks before every step when the patients were under their care. So, guys, hopefully you kind of heard those context clues about patient care. Now I'm going to show you kind of an interesting study tool that you can actually take parts of your lecture notes or even entire PowerPoints and plug them in to create your own little AI cartoons. Because when you create silly things like stories, like this one, or if you create something silly like an actual AI generated cartoon, you're going to remember it longer. The sillier it is, the more your brain's going to hold on to that memory. So next, I'm going to take you to an AI app that's linked to the AI app ChatGPT. It's called the Sora app. Let's see if this link works. Hold on, let me try this share one more time. Okay, I just have to get queued up here to this Sora app. You do a take two. I have to make sure I share sound. Okay, here we go. So this is the Sora app, and I'm going to scroll through a series of videos with you, and you're going to see kind of parts of this story that I just read to you, generated and interpreted in 10 to 15-second clips. Now, if you purchase the app, you can clean these up and create more clips. You can even link them together and edit them. This is a very rough draft cut because it's my first time using this app. But see what you can interpret from what that story was and play with it. Try to create your own tools. You can create your own kind of mnemonic devices and make these little nursing stories come to life for yourself. Let's go.
It's called immobility. Regular movement keeps it away.
Minimum daily movement. Got it.
At Maslow Mountain, basic needs come first. Air, water, food.
Listen closely, little nurses. In Carelandia, there's a curse called immobility. Regular movement keeps it away.
Minimum daily movement. Got it.
At Maslow Mountain, basic needs come first. Air, water, food.
So we should have ascertained a few really important things. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We should have also ascertained the bottom of the pyramid is where the majority of your test questions are going to come from. Very, very important. So really, you're getting these visual images coming at you, strong colors, and your mind's making this connection that the Maslow's hierarchy of need, this bottom rung of the pyramid is all physiologic, and this is going to come in handy, and you're going to need a patient to breathe before you can really go and focus on anything else. Remember, hypoxia, within 3 minutes, we're going to have permanent damage. So we really need to address this before we address anything else. Let's see if you can ascertain any other facts on this next clip.
Starting compressions. 1, 2, 3,
Charging
4.
to 200.
Ready. Tell on.
Clear.
Shock delivered. Resuming compressions.
Wait, sinus rhythm coming
78,
back.
78. All right, keep ventilating. Good job, team. Go.
So in this one, you can see hands completely in the wrong place. We don't have the correct area. We're not doing chest compressions. She's doing abdominal compressions. You can see the palm is not compressed correctly. You can see nobody's at the airway. You can see nobody's doing any type of note taking to be the recorder. You can see that the crash cart's not even in place. Nobody's putting the monitor on. You can see the mask isn't being worn, and look at that rhythm. So lots of things are incorrect in this visual. She's not leaning correctly, so the bed's a little too high up for her. So many, many, many things are wrong with this image. Let's look at the next.
Paul, starting compressions.
Once upon a shift in Carelandia, student nurses prepared for the exam of 30-something questions. Among them was Nova and the legendary Professor Setterby.
Beware the curse of immobility. Turn, dangle, help them walk a couple hours a day to keep it away.
She led them past Maslow Mountain and its glowing pyramid.
Exactly.
They crossed body mechanics. Once upon a...
Okay, we're already kind of catching on to a theme here that it's very dangerous to have immobility. Immobility is a theme here, that immobility is a real big problem leading to lots of comorbidities. And we also had another clue. Turning is going to be very helpful. So it's going to spark your knowledge, and then you're maybe going to write down, wait, how often are we supposed to turn?
A shift in Carelandia, student nurses prepared for the exam of 30-something.
Wide stance. No twisting, load close, knees bent. So even though some of these things are misspelled, you're kind of thinking, well, it's triggering me to correct this, and I want to pause this and I want to think about this.
Questions. Among them was Nova and the legendary Professor Setterby.
Beware the curse of immobility. Turn, dangle, help them walk a couple hours.
Dangle. What does dangle mean? Oh, could that be for orthostatic hypotension?
Hours a day to keep it away.
She led them past Maslow Mountain and its...
And turn them 2 hours a day to keep the curse of immobility away. So even in these silly little clips, as you're studying for fun...
glowing pyramid.
Exactly.
They
reached the Hall of Education. On its doors were shiny plaques.
Before you can even begin your nurse journey, your school must be approved by the state. That means a state agency has checked that your program meets minimum standards and is safe for the kingdom.
Wow.
Okay, so now you're thinking your school has to be safe for the kingdom. And now you can read, oh, wait, there's context clues in here. Laws exist. Wait, licensing laws exist for one big reason, to protect the public. To protect the public. That's right. That's the whole reason licensing laws exist in the first place. That's a very big deal. It's to protect the public from us.
They soon reached the Hall of Education. On its doors were shiny plaques.
Before you can even begin your nurse journey, your school must be approved by the state. That means a state agency has checked that your program meets minimum standards and is safe for the kingdom.
Wow.
They soon reached the Hall.
Crossed body mechanics. Once upon a shift. The next part of Carelandia, they had to cross the body mechanics bridge.
Now we protect patients, but we must also protect our own backs.
She picked up a heavy treasure chest labeled patient. Watch how I live. To get to the next part of
So we protect our own backs. Body mechanics. Now we know what body mechanics is. Wide stance and close to the body. No twisting.
Carelandia, they had to cross the body mechanics bridge.
Now we protect patients, but we must also protect our own backs.
Load close, knees bent, wide stance, no twisting.
She picked up a heavy treasure chest labeled patient.
Hall of Education. On its door.
Watch how
Sunny morning, Professor Setterby gathered the students at the edge of Mobility Meadow.
Listen closely, little nurses. In Carelandia, there is a terrible curse called immobility.
One sunny morning, Professor
Once upon a shift, in a land called Carelandia, there was a little nursing school tucked between Mobility Meadow and Hygiene Harbor. In this school, a group of student nurses was getting ready for a great challenge. Among these, once upon a shift, in a land called Carelandia, there was a little
Next, Professor Setterby led the class to the foot of Maslow Mountain. At the base was a giant glowing pyramid. This is Maslow's pyramid of needs. At the very bottom are the physiological. Next, Professor Setterby.
By Perineal Pond, there was a patient needing male perineal care. When cleansing a male patient, start at the meatal opening and clean in a solution.
So the urinary meatus is what the opening is before you get to the urethra, and it's telling you to clean in a circular motion outward each time. It's reminding you.
They came upon eye stream where clear water flowed.
For eye care, we always clean from the inner corner of the eye to the outer corner to keep dirt and germs from flowing toward the tear duct.
She dipped a cloth and demonstrates. They came upon eye stream where clear water flowed.
For eye care, we always...
They entered tube forest, where some patients had nasogastric tubes and others had oxygen cannulas.
When a tube goes through the nose, we must inspect and clean the nares regularly, at least once.
They entered tube forest, where some patients had nasogastric tubes and others had oxygen cannulas.
Next came Transfer Town, where patients needed help moving from bed to chair.
To move a patient safely, you may use a gait belt, keep the patient close, and say...
Next came Transfer Town, where patients needed help moving from bed to chair.
To move a patient safely, you may use a gait belt, keep the patient close, and say...
Next, they soon reached the Hall of Education. On its doors were shiny plaques.
Before you can even begin your nurse journey, your school must be approved by the state. That means a state agency has checked that your nurse...
They soon reached the Hall of...
They walked into Linen Lane, where sheets and blankets fluttered like flags.
When linens are soiled, we must handle them carefully. We do not shake them in the air like wizard capes.
They walked into Linen Lane, where sheets and blankets...
To get to the next part of Carelandia, they had to cross the body mechanics bridge.
Now, we protect patients, but we must also protect our own backs. That is exactly how we injure our backs.
Nova Scribble.
To get to the next part of Carelandia, they had to cross the body mechanics.
Next came Transfer Town, where patients needed help moving from bed to chair. To move a patient safely, you may use a gait belt, keep the patient close, and say, on the count of 3, we move together. Next.
So that would be an assisted fall. Not the best, but...
Next came Transfer Town, where patients needed help moving from bed to chair. To move a patient safely...
At Range of Motion River, a patient practiced moving their arms.
When the patient moves their joints on their own, we call that active range of motion.
Nearby, another patient could not move by them. At Range of Motion River, a patient practiced moving...
At Range of Motion River, a patient practiced moving their arms.
When the patient moves their joints on their own, we call that active range of motion.
Nearby, another patient could not... At Range of...
The group approached a gentle slope called Semi-Fowler's Hill.
When you hear semi-Fowler's, think of the head of the bed raised about 30 degrees. It helps with breathing and comfort, but doesn't bend the patient like a pretzel.
The group approached a gentle slope called Semi-Fowler's Hill.
When you hear semi-Fowler's, think of the...
Soon they arrived at the Sitz Bath Springs, where warm water bubbled around a ring-shaped tub.
A sitz bath sends warm water swirling around the perineal and anal area to reduce discomfort and inflammation. We usually keep the patient in for about 20 minutes, but we stop immediately if they feel dizzy or faint.
As if on cue, soon they arrived at the Sitz Bath Springs, where warm...
Whoops.
They entered Nightingale Garden.
Soon they arrived at the Sitz Bath Springs, where warm water bubbled around a ring-shaped tub.
A sitz bath sends warm water swirling around the perineal and anal area to reduce discomfort and inflammation. We usually keep the patient in for about 20 minutes, but we stop immediately if they feel dizzy or faint. I got you.
Soon they arrived.
In the Hall of Laws,
Grooming Glen,
Soon they arrived at the sitz bath spring.
patient needed a shave.
When a patient is at risk for bleeding, say they're on anticoagulants, their platelets are low, or they have a bleeding disorder, we don't reach for the blade. We use an electric razor. The foil head keeps the skin safe while still giving a clean shave.
Safety never. Grooming Glen,
a giant scroll hung on the wall.
This is the Nurse Practice Act. It tells us the roles and responsibilities of the LPN or LVN and what we may and may not do.
Nova noticed how everything tied back to protecting the public and giving safe, ethical care. In the Hall of Laws, a giant scroll hung
at the Sitz Bath Springs.
Filled with lanterns and clean, crisp air. This garden honors Florence Nightingale, who taught us that a clean, well-ventilated environment helps patients heal. They entered Nightingale Ward. On a hill above the village was Pressure Injury Lookout.
When we assess a pressure injury, we look at size, depth, color of tissue, pain, and odor. All these details help us stage it and plan treatments to protect the rest of the skin.
That's the premise. On a hill above the village was Pressure Injury Lookout.
When we assess a pressure injury, we look at size.
So silly, very weird, but you're probably going to remember some of these things a little bit more. Try, experiment, have a good time with some of these AI tools. See if it's something with these visuals, with these moving images, if you and your study groups can kind of send these little memes to each other and you can remember a little bit more. Happy studying, everybody. And for exam 1, topics 1, this is Professor Setterby, and happy studies.